Delighted with our next guest, by the way. We haven't spoken, but I'm told he is the man. Ben Harris-Quinney, political commentator and chair of the Boat Group. A very good afternoon. Welcome to Drive.
Good afternoon to you.
Oh, there was a slight satellite delay there, sir. How are you? Welcome to the show. Let's have a good old bit, shall we, let's start with Ed Miliband. Extraordinary decision today. It's going to put an oil tax only on exploration of British oil. So this is going to affect thousands of British jobs, Aberdeen, other cities as well. Not in Saudi Arabia. It's going to happen right here. Can you explain to me how the Labour Party, unless they don't really care because they've got such a big majority, expect this to be received? Because in my mind, unless I'm missing the point, Ben, this is going to go down like a cold cup of sick.
Well, I mean, it's obviously going to cost the oil industry a huge amount of money. A lot of people won't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but when you realise it's going to cost the UK economy hundreds of billions and see energy bills go up yet further, it obviously is a bad thing. And as you rightly say, all we are doing is offshoring the production of energy to places like Saudi Arabia, to places, indeed, until very recently, like Russia, like China, where they produce energy more cheaply using huge amounts of carbon and ship it back to us, which then uses huge amounts of carbon again. It is one of the biggest cons this country has ever seen. And I think when people start realising the cost, net zero will increasingly become one of the most toxic policies in history.
And as that last voice note from Jim pointed out, is it about green issues or is it about cash? I always use deliberately, Ben, that example of Sadiq Khan. He came out with this sort of heartfelt, please don't bring your diesel car into London, the pollution is going to kill people. But if you give him £12.50, he doesn't give a damn. To me, the Ed Miliband, I mean, they're shouting hypocrisy today because he's gone 6,000 miles first class on a government jet to Brazil to lecture people on not using planes. I mean, this isn't a made-up fact. Do it by Zoom, you idiot. I don't understand. Are all these mad things like releasing prisoners? You know, like, let's just let them out. Let's tell everybody stealing a car, like my father-in-law's that was nicked, is a petty crime. That's not going to wash. Let's screw it with pensioners straight away. Are they just trying to get everything, the radical side of them, in early as they've got this large majority, or what? Because it doesn't make sense to me.
If only that was so. I think there's a lot more to come. But you know, again, as you say, Ed Miliband's off on his jet. I think Sadiq Khan's still got his Range Rover, his 350 grand Range Rover. Two. Yes. You're right. I'm sorry. Two 350 grand Range Rovers that he tours around London in. And, you know, if you remember, we were told, weren't we, that the green boom is going to come in. Energy's going to get cheaper. Everyone's going to get richer. And what's happened over the last 2 decades? Energy bills are up 200%. I don't think anyone feels like they're getting richer. I think everyone feels like everything is getting more expensive, life's getting harder, and you know, it just doesn't add up. The benefits aren't coming through, and I think we need a complete rethink and also a full analysis economically about how much this is costing. McKinsey estimated that globally net zero will cost 275 trillion. Just unheard of numbers. You know, no war, nothing has ever cost that much. And I'm not
altogether, I mean, I'm old, right? Older than you, older than everybody. I don't understand. I mean, I get the whole, we've got to think about the future. I flippantly say it's something to do with me, I'll be dead. I understand about that for our kids and our grandkids. But surely the answer has to be some form of balance, Ben, because right now there are such pressing issues in this country. And that's why many on the right are frustrated and worried about immigration, not because they're racist, not because they don't as a country want to offer humanitarian aid to people who really need it, but because we see today, we had statistics for it's unbelievable, nearly 500,000 people bringing in families just so they can study. I get all of that, but I don't get it when I know, because I hear it on a daily basis, that many British people are struggling and suffering. But the activists and the bedwetters, they don't seem to care about those people. These people are irrelevant. Well, I'm telling Starmer, those people are not irrelevant. Those people did not vote for you. You got less votes than in 2019 under Jeremy Corbyn. I actually fear, and I said at the top of the show, that we've ended up with the most socialist Prime Minister since 1979, and I genuinely mean that.
Well, look at the poll ratings. Starmer has lost his positive poll rating in a matter of 6 weeks. In a few years, I think there'll be real anger and real unrest that will be palpable, because, as you say, Labour have come in because of the first past the post system, skewing the reality of their popularity, and they're not very popular at all. And in a few years, they'll be very, very unpopular. But on both policies that you mentioned, on immigration, on net zero, the point is they're totally unsustainable. Net zero would be one thing if we say we've got to pay this money and it's going to work. If you look at all the figures, it's not going to work. It's not going to lower the temperature one iota. What it's going to do is make life more expensive for everyone and make wars more likely throughout the world, because everyone's living with less and there's going to be greater scarcity, and that will really damage the environment. So again, these buzzwords about immigration, about net zero, that might sound good to lefty liberals. When you look at the detail, the numbers just don't add up. And they're not adding up for people at home when they're balancing their budgets every week, and they're not adding up for the country.
You're absolutely right. Two other things, just quickly. It's great to have you on, Ben. This is another bugbear of mine. Announced by Louise Haigh today, the new Transport Secretary is going to roll out more, I don't know what more means, 20-mile-an-hour speed zones across the United Kingdom. These were implemented by... I called him Kim Young Drayford and got told off. Mark Drayford, when he was the leader of the Senedd, or whatever it's called in Wales, he's no longer around. The most unpopular policy amongst Welsh men and women. 70% of them now say an absolute joke, shouldn't have been allowed, blah, blah, blah. And yet Louise Haigh, for some unknown reason, again, maybe that green thing, well, here's the thing, it's got nothing to do with the green environment, because it doesn't. In fact, it creates more pollution, I'm told. This again, though, surely, unless I'm missing the point, just ticking the box to the green environment, saying you're doing the right thing by schools. But I mean, I guess they want to pedestrianise every major city, don't they? A bit like Khan, not allow anybody anywhere.
Well, that, not just major cities, but towns too. I was a councillor for many years, and they were pushing then to introduce pedestrianisation of, you know, a pretty small market town. They want to do it up and down the country. And, you know, again, what it's going to mean is life gets harder for everyone. Life gets more expensive for everyone. And most high streets, you know, London, maybe one thing, places like Cambridge and Oxford, they shouldn't do it. They can maybe get away with it. But in most small towns, they can't keep up with having a bus scheme or a pedestrianisation of the city centre, because no one will bother to go, because it's not worth it.
That's exactly true. Exactly true. Final thing, really good, Ben, thank you. Just something I threw out earlier, love your response to it. Going back to the riots and Starmer's robust response to the far right, but then he politicised it by... He talked about, quite rightly, people shouldn't be attacking Muslim centres or asylum seeker centres or whatever. But less was done in Leeds. We know about the unfairness, and people are criticising two-tier. I threw in the example this weekend of the Notting Hill Carnival. I wonder whether you agree with me. I'm slightly concerned. I don't think there'll be the same robustness, but last year at the Notting Hill Carnival, a multicultural carnival, I get it, 308 people, OK, were arrested, 75 police officers were assaulted and 8 people were stabbed. For me, if you're going to do that sort of robust policing where suddenly you've got space and the courts are open on a Saturday and you can film people being dragged from their beds, quite rightly, I hope we're going to do it the other side as well. And you know, get the knives off the street, get the drugs off the street, deal with the Notting Hill Carnival. I bet my bottom dollar it doesn't happen this weekend in London. Would you agree or disagree, my friend?
Well, of course, you're right. And, you know, cast your mind back to all of the Israel-Gaza protests, the BLM riots. All the same laws are in place, but a very different system of policing. And you'll remember Keir Starmer taking the knee when those riots were going on. I think the most important thing is that whatever the incident, be it a terrorist incident, a riot or whatever, we've got to hold on to our freedoms in this country.
Yeah.
We've got to defend freedom of speech. We've got to defend the rights that people have fought so hard. We don't want a military state. We don't want a jackboot on our necks. And I think when you're getting people going to prison for what they say on Twitter, we've turned a dark corner, and the world is seeing that, and the world's condemning it.
Really good to have you on, Ben Harris-Quinney. Thank you so much indeed. Political commentator and chair of the Bow Group.